Shock in Los Angeles. Jimin collapses under strain, Jin battles exhaustion, and Jungkook breaks down in tears. What is happening behind the closed doors of BTS? The news arrived like a thunderclap in the dead of night, forcing millions of fans across the globe to confront a reality they never imagined. Members of BTS, the unstoppable global phenomenon, are now fighting battles that no stage lights can conceal. Why is Jimin undergoing intensive treatment in Los Angeles? Why has Jin, the eldest member known for resilience, reached a breaking point of exhaustion? And what drove Jungkook, the youngest, to tears in a moment that has left the fandom shaken to its core? The unsettling truth lies in the fragile balance between fame, pressure, and the human body that can no longer bear the weight of expectation. The first signals were subtle. Observers noted Jimin's energy faltering, his once vibrant demeanor overshadowed by a quiet fatigue. The strain, they whispered, had been building for weeks. His schedule, non-stop rehearsals, recordings, and transcontinental travel seemed impossible for even the strongest to endure. Yet, as always, Jimin hid behind his signature smile, masking the pain that was carving its way into his stamina. Few anticipated that in Los Angeles, his body would finally betray him, leaving him in need of intensive medical care. The revelation has been nothing short of devastating. How did one of the group's most dynamic performers reach this point, and why did no one see it coming? At the same time, whispers began to circulate about Jin's own condition. Known for his unyielding dedication, Jin had always carried himself with a calm strength, the silent pillar that steadied the group. But insiders now describe a man stretched past human limits. His exhaustion was not a fleeting weakness. It was the culmination of years of relentless sacrifice. Those close to him recount tremors in his hands, a weariness in his eyes, and a body that resisted every demand placed upon it. When the decision was made to rush him into urgent care, it confirmed what many feared but few dared say aloud. The foundation of BTS was cracking under strain. The shock intensified when reports surfaced of Jungkook's reaction. Witnesses reveal that the youngest member, often celebrated for his composure and strength, broke down in uncontrollable tears upon learning the truth of his Hyung's conditions. Why did the golden magne, typically seen as unshakable, lose his composure so completely? Sources suggest the answer lies not only in the seriousness of Jimin's intensive care and Jin's collapse, but also in Jungkook's own mounting awareness of their shared vulnerability. For him, the sight, or even the thought, of those he looks up to confined to hospital beds shattered the illusion of invincibility that had long cloaked their bond. Inside the Los Angeles medical facility, details remain scarce but troubling. Jimin is said to be under constant monitoring, undergoing a program designed to stabilize his health and protect him from further deterioration. The intensity of his treatment indicates more than mere fatigue. It suggests a body dangerously close to burnout. Jin, meanwhile, is reported to be resting under medical supervision, forced into stillness by doctors who insist that his body can no longer afford to be pushed beyond its natural limits. Neither man's recovery timeline has been disclosed, leaving fans and industry observers in a state of tense uncertainty. The emotional fallout is spreading beyond the hospital walls. Jungkook's panic is not merely a moment of weakness. It is a mirror reflecting the deep familial ties within BTS. For years, Jin has been his guide, the steadying presence during storms of pressure. For years, Jimin has been his partner in performance, pushing him to higher artistic heights. To see both of them falter, and so far from home in Los Angeles, is a torment that words can scarcely capture. His tears are not isolated grief. They are the physical embodiment of the fear shared by millions of fans who now question what toll this level of fame truly extracts. The questions multiply with each passing hour. What exactly triggered this crisis in Los Angeles? Why were the warning signs ignored until the situation demanded hospitalization? And, most alarmingly, how long can BTS continue to shoulder the weight of an entire industry without collapse? These are not idle speculations, but urgent matters, as the group's future hangs in the balance. The silence surrounding the precise details of Jimin and Jin's conditions only intensifies the speculation, and with Jungkook's visible distress confirming the gravity of the situation, the sense of alarm is escalating. Observers note that BTS is not facing this crisis in isolation. The entertainment industry has long been plagued by stories of burnout, overwork, and the relentless exploitation of talent. Yet rarely has such a raw moment been exposed within a group of this magnitude. The hospitalization of Jimin and Jin, coupled with Jungkook's breakdown, forces an uncomfortable confrontation. Even the brightest stars cannot shine without rest. The human body, no matter how disciplined, will rebel when pushed too far. And in this rebellion, the consequences ripple far beyond the individual, shaking entire communities of fans and reshaping the narrative of global stardom. For now, Los Angeles remains the epicenter of both hope and despair. Behind closed hospital doors, Jimin fights for stability, Jin struggles to recover strength, and Jungkook grapples with the unbearable weight of watching his brothers suffer. The other members, though quieter in public, are said to be deeply unsettled, their own schedules overshadowed by the health emergency unfolding in real time. Fans scour social media for updates, clinging to every fragment of information, while anxiety mounts with each day of silence. The bond between idol and audience has never felt more fragile or more deeply human. The unfolding situation raises urgent questions with no easy answers. Will Jimin's intensive treatment restore him to the stage, or will it mark the beginning of a longer battle with health? Can Jin, the cornerstone of strength, truly recover from the exhaustion that has consumed him? And how will Jungkook, the youngest yet now visibly shaken, navigate the emotional burden of watching his role model suffer? Until these questions find answers, uncertainty reigns, and the global fandom waits with bated breath. What is clear is this: the crisis in Los Angeles is not just a story of illness. It is a story of sacrifice, of human fragility beneath the glare of global fame, and of the unbreakable bonds that tie BTS together even in their darkest moments. Jimin's intensive care, Jin's exhaustion, and Jungkook's tears are not isolated events. They are threads of a larger narrative, one that reveals the cost of perfection and the peril of relentless pursuit without pause. As the world watches, one question echoes louder than any other. When the lights fade and the applause subsides, who will protect the protectors? The uncertainty surrounding Jimin and Jin's health is magnified by the silence that continues to dominate official channels. Without clear communication, speculation grows into fear, and fear transforms into collective panic. The fandom, known for its unity and resilience, is now divided between those demanding transparency and those pleading for privacy. Yet both sides agree on one point: the well-being of the members must come before every performance, endorsement, and global commitment. This shared sentiment, echoing in countless posts and late-night discussions, underscores a truth that has too often been ignored in the relentless pace of modern entertainment. Medical experts familiar with cases of severe fatigue have suggested that recovery is neither quick nor guaranteed. They warn that prolonged exhaustion, if untreated, can trigger cascading health complications that extend beyond the physical into the psychological. For Jimin, whose artistry thrives on emotional connection and physical precision, this danger is acute. For Jin, whose steady presence has anchored the group since its inception, the risk of long-term strain threatens not only his career but his personal stability. The prospect of either man facing extended absence is one that fans are struggling to imagine, yet must now confront with sobering clarity. Jungkook's visible anguish adds another layer to the crisis. Those who witnessed his breakdown describe a moment of raw vulnerability rarely seen in public. The tears were not fleeting. They were prolonged, unrestrained, and impossible to disguise. Analysts suggest his reaction may be symptomatic of something larger, the growing psychological toll carried by younger members forced to watch their role models collapse under pressure. His distress is not just grief, it is fear of the same future awaiting him if the cycle continues. The weight of leadership is heavy, but the weight of witnessing the collapse of those you admire can be crushing beyond measure. What lies ahead remains uncertain. The hospital rooms in Los Angeles may offer temporary reprieve, but the deeper question persists: can the demands of global stardom ever coexist with the limits of human endurance? Until Jimin regains strength, until Jin recovers balance, and until Jungkook finds peace, the world will wait in suspended tension, reminded that behind every dazzling performance lies a fragile body and a vulnerable heart. Crisis or construct? The alarming reports of Jimin's intensive care, Jin's exhaustion, and Jungkook's breakdown under scrutiny, the images painted in recent reports, Jimin confined to intensive care in Los Angeles, Jin battling critical exhaustion, and Jungkook reduced to visible tears, have electrified the global stage with a mixture of shock, grief, and disbelief. But in the midst of this storm, a more unsettling question emerges. Do these accounts represent unvarnished truth, or are they carefully manufactured narratives designed to provoke emotional reaction and monopolize public attention? The answer is not simple, and it compels every reader, every viewer, and every fan to pause, examine, and reflect with unflinching seriousness. What if the narrative of collapse and despair is nothing more than an exaggerated construction amplified by social platforms hungry for clicks and shares? What if the reports of Jimin's treatment are based not on verifiable evidence, but on fragments circulating across TikTok edits, Twitter threads, and YouTube commentary? Can we, as global consumers of information, claim certainty when the sources themselves remain shrouded in vagueness? These are not rhetorical musings, but urgent questions that demand contemplation. For what does it mean if millions have already accepted as reality something that may, in fact, be staged or manipulated? It is worth considering the mechanics of virality. The very structure of digital culture rewards sensation over substance, amplification over accuracy. How often have fabricated rumors grown into perceived fact simply because repetition gave them weight? Is this case any different? The tears of Jungkook, described with such intensity in eyewitness accounts, were they documented in credible footage, or are they retold through hearsay multiplied across anonymous online posts? The dramatic collapse of Jin from exhaustion, was it medically verified or merely speculated by those eager to interpret his visible fatigue? And Jimin's alleged intensive care, has any reliable institution confirmed the severity of his treatment? Or are audiences consuming a story sculpted for maximum emotional impact? Skepticism must not be confused with cynicism. To question the authenticity of these reports does not mean dismissing the humanity of the artists or ignoring the genuine possibility of suffering. Rather, it reflects a necessary intellectual discipline in an era where narratives spread faster than evidence. Why should one believe in an account delivered through Twitter before confirmation arrives from professional medical or journalistic channels? Why should a viral TikTok clip, devoid of context, outweigh the absence of verifiable reporting? The responsibility lies not only with those who produce content, but also with those who consume it uncritically. Consider the psychological effect of blind acceptance. If audiences internalize every claim without examination, they risk becoming pawns in the machinery of sensationalism. Could the portrayal of BTS members as physically collapsing and emotionally shattered be strategically exaggerated to sustain media dominance? Could emotional manipulation be at play, engineered to bind audiences more tightly to a narrative of crisis and recovery? If such is the case, then what we perceive as tragedy might instead be performance, and the victims might not be the idols, but the audiences whose emotions are exploited. Do readers recognize the thin line between empathy and manipulation, between solidarity and gullibility? Yet, there remains the undeniable possibility that the crisis is genuine. What if Jimin truly lies in intensive care, battling a body exhausted by years of relentless work? What if Jin's physical decline is as severe as whispers suggest, his strength spent in service of a career that demands unbroken resilience? And what if Jungkook's tears are not symbolic fabrications but raw testimony of anguish? The possibility that these events are real intensifies the urgency of verification. If true, then the failure lies not in the idols, but in an industry and society that celebrate relentless productivity while neglecting human fragility. But until verified, the public remains suspended between two poles, compassion and suspicion. This duality demands reflection from every consumer of media. Do you, the reader, believe without hesitation that the events described are factual? Or do you sense the unsettling possibility that the narrative has been tailored for maximum impact, independent of truth? Are you willing to accept that you may have been deceived, that your emotions may have been deliberately provoked? Or do you insist that doubt dishonors the suffering of the artists? Each position carries weight, but each also demands accountability. Blind faith is as dangerous as blind rejection. The origins of these reports must be interrogated with forensic precision. When claims arise primarily from platforms such as TikTok, YouTube, and Twitter, where virality often replaces verification, can they be trusted? Are these platforms not notorious for elevating fragments of truth into spectacles of fiction? How many previous scandals, debunked upon scrutiny, began as similarly electrifying claims? And how many reputations have been shattered by narratives later revealed as baseless? If such precedents exist, and they undeniably do, then why should the public suspend skepticism in this instance? The responsibility of the audience is to resist the seduction of certainty in the absence of evidence. To do otherwise is to participate in a culture of hoax, where emotion replaces fact and narrative eclipses reality. Can the public endure the discomfort of uncertainty? Can fans restrain their impulse to amplify stories before they are verified? And can readers acknowledge their complicity in sustaining cycles of misinformation? These questions are not merely theoretical. They demand immediate confrontation. At stake is more than the health of individual idols. At stake is the integrity of collective perception itself. If audiences fail to exercise skepticism, then entire communities risk becoming complicit in the spread of unverified claims. If millions accept a story without question, what prevents future manipulations of even greater magnitude? Does the world not already suffer from the corrosive effects of disinformation in politics, health, and culture? Is this case not a reflection of that broader crisis? The call, therefore, is not to dismiss the reports, nor to embrace them uncritically. It is to hold them in suspension, to demand evidence, and to resist premature judgment. Let us acknowledge the emotional weight of the story while refusing to surrender reason to sensation. Let us honor the possibility of real suffering without becoming instruments of manipulation. Let us insist on a higher standard of truth. Reader, the question falls squarely upon you. Do you truly believe Jimin is in intensive care in Los Angeles? Do you accept that Jin's exhaustion has reached the level of medical crisis? Do you affirm that Jungkook's tears reflect unvarnished anguish? Or do you perceive the fingerprints of sensationalism shaping every line, every detail, every retelling? The answer is yours alone to give, but it must be informed, deliberate, and cautious. Truth, after all, is fragile. It demands guardians who refuse to be swayed by spectacle. Will you be such a guardian, or will you surrender to the allure of narrative untested? The choice and the responsibility remain with you. The dilemma now intensifies. Should audiences continue to circulate unverified reports in the name of solidarity, or should they halt all discussion until facts are substantiated? To amplify without evidence risks fueling a hoax, but to remain silent risks appearing indifferent to possible suffering. Which path reflects true responsibility, immediate empathy, or cautious restraint? And can these two coexist without contradiction? Each retweet, each share, and each reaction carries weight in the digital arena. Is the act of expressing concern merely a gesture of compassion, or is it simultaneously an unwitting contribution to the machinery of sensationalism? When countless fans echo the same narrative without verification, are they demonstrating loyalty, or are they transforming themselves into amplifiers of uncertainty? Can devotion blind judgment? And if so, where does accountability lie? Consider also the economic dimensions. Who benefits from the spread of panic? Viral videos generate revenue. Trending hashtags attract advertisers. Speculative articles increase clicks. Could it be that the crisis, whether real or exaggerated, is serving financial interests rather than public awareness? If so, does compassion itself become a commodity? And do fans become unwitting participants in a marketplace where emotion is traded for profit? Is it possible that outrage and grief have been monetized, turned into instruments of commerce rather than channels of truth? The reader must therefore ask, when engaging with these reports, are you honoring the artists or feeding the system that exploits them? When you replay a clip on YouTube, when you react to a thread on Twitter, when you comment on a TikTok analysis, are you seeking truth or sustaining spectacle? Is your role that of a witness or that of a consumer? And does this distinction matter if, in the end, the line between reality and fiction remains obscured? The challenge extends further. Will audiences learn from this moment to demand verification, or will the pattern of uncritical consumption continue? History suggests repetition is inevitable, but does history also demand resignation? Or can this moment become a turning point where fandoms, instead of amplifying uncertainty, insist upon evidence before reaction? If not now, when? If not in this case, then in which?